It's time for Remodel Revolution. And now, an award-winning contractor with over 40 years experience. Here is Alex Guthrie.
Welcome to another episode of Remodel Revolution. I'm your host, Alex Guthrie. It is another beautiful day deep in the heart of the great state of Texas. We're coming to you live from the Remodel Revolution World Headquarters. And I'm so glad you're here with us today. We've got a great show today. We're going to have Ryan Amerson with Energy Attic. We're going to talk about ways to take your attic. Ryan has a 3-part system to take your attic and make it a lot more energy efficient, which makes your bills better, your house more comfortable. It's all good. We're going to visit with him in just a little bit. We're also going to talk about what is the best return on investment projects. Where do you get the best bucks? We've got 5 or 6, maybe 7 projects we're going to talk about that you can do in your home where you'll get the best bang for the buck, which is obviously what we're always interested in doing. And then we're going to talk about a lot of energy. We're going to talk about a new sponsor to our show. I'm very, very, very proud to have them on board with us, and we're going to introduce them, and you'll get to know them. We've got some series coming up with them. It's going to be really a lot of fun. So let's talk about people and how they're spending money during this pandemic. This was something that I ran into, and I thought it was quite interesting. And so all of you remodelers and designers and architects that are watching the show, and homeowners as well, this is some interesting information that came out. Despite widespread disruptions to the U.S. economy from the coronavirus, 73% of homeowners are planning to renovate their homes in 2020, according to May 2020 Lightstream Home Improvement Survey. This was very interesting. They surveyed about 1,300 people, and they came up with some fascinating statistics. It's as a result of COVID-19 shutdowns that closed offices, businesses, schools, and more, self-isolation has forced Americans to take a much closer look at their homes, said Todd Nelson, Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Lightstream. Incidentally, to give full credit, this article was written by Vincent Salandro, who I quote a lot because he's a great writer. He does very interesting articles. So thank you, Vincent. According to the survey, individuals are moving forward with or expanding projects at more than twice the rate of those cutting back or canceling planned projects. COVID-19 is shifting where the attention of homeowners lies, though, and nearly half of homeowners planning home improvement projects want to complete an outdoor project. Basically, what these stats are telling us is that we're all, there's a big shift going on, basically, on what our priorities are and also how we're prioritizing our money. I think that the amazing thing is that the shock to the system of the American consumer is fairly profound, and it's just now sort of unwinding. We're sort of unpackaging where things are going. People are changing their priorities partly because they have to, but I think a lot of, as every time we have a recession, every time we have something bad like this happen, and we have this big shock to the system, we all have to look at our lifestyle and decide where our money needs to be spent, where we need to save, where we need to cut back. And this one has been particularly interesting because people are locked in their houses and are having to work from their homes, educate their kids from home. Everything is house-centric now. You know, for years, you couldn't get anybody to stay home. They were basically just sleeping there, and then they're running kids all over the place or going to work, and nobody was seeing each other. Families were fractured. It was wild. And now we have just exactly the opposite happening. And I'm hopeful and sort of optimistic that this ends up being a really good thing in the long run. I have a feeling that we're going to end up looking back over time and saying, wow, our families are sitting down together again and spending time together again. Well, this is having an impact on how people are deciding to spend money, prioritizing outdoor. A lot of our projects that are coming to us are outdoor living areas, and people are spending a lot of money on them. A lot of that is because we live in a smaller house, not a lot smaller house, but a smaller lot. We don't have a way to get away from each other. And so a lot of people are prioritizing spending money on a different type of quality structure where they can spend time with their kids outdoors. As a result of COVID-19, homeowners are reportedly placing a higher value on privacy in their homes. More than a third of surveyed homeowners feel they do not have a personal space in their house. The percentage is higher among parents. Well, yeah, because you're having to deal with your kids all day. I get it, and you're having an office out of the home, and of course you're also having to homeschool your kids. So yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Additionally, homeowners engaged in virtual classes and video chats more frequently are more conscious of how their homes look on these calls. Nearly 2/3 of homeowners who have made video calls from home during the pandemic are embarrassed by part of their living space, according to Livestream. Now, honestly, if you've watched my videos, and I did a few from the house, yes, I got some comments about the lavender walls in the spare bedroom that I use. I didn't paint them. I don't like the color, but hey, I get this whole statement. It's true. So if you're planning a remodel project in 2021, send me a message. Alex at remodelrevolutionradio.com, Alex at remodelrev.com, or on Facebook, and let's discuss what you're planning to do. I'm not looking for your business as much as I'm curious about what your plans are and your thoughts moving forward on what you're wanting to do and why. Now, I've always had a big business in offices. I've had people starting 10, 15 years ago that started officing, and I think it had to do with the internet becoming available to everybody, but people officing from their homes, and particularly people that travel in their business, and they'll have a home office, and they'll do a lot of their business from home when they're not on the road. And so I'm real curious how you're dealing with the design, where you're putting your office. I have built them in living rooms, in master closets, in kitchens. It's amazing. Some people do like I do, and they take a spare bedroom that they're not using and convert it to a nice office. It's a great way to do it. So let me know what you're planning on doing, and I'd be curious to have that conversation with you. So when you're planning your remodel, if you're going to upgrade an office in your house or create an office space in your house, which is primarily is what this article is about, I think that you need to make sure that you're thinking about resale. And so you don't want to take a bedroom that someone else might need when you're trying to resell your house and turn it into a full-time office. But there's ways to get around that. Now, our new sponsor partner, Closets by Design DFW, this is something that they specialize in, and we'll have them on the air, and we're going to discuss this with them. Again, we had them on a couple months ago to introduce them, and it was really fun having Gia Gamatese here. But we're going to do a show coming up on the best practices for designing an office in your home. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. I thought that was quite interesting, and things are changing so rapidly because of this pandemic that we're not able to it's pretty hard just to sort of keep up with it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Ryan Amerson on with us, and we're going to talk about Energy Attic, his company, and his three-pronged approach to making your attic and your home more energy efficient. We'll be right back. The hardest working and arguably most important system in our homes is our air conditioning and heating system. It heats the air, it cools the air, and it filters the air. That's why it's so critical to have it checked and maintained by the very best professionals available. It's time to contact Total Air and Heat at totalair.com. Get that system pruned and tuned. If you want to have the very best experience, you've got to hire the very best company. Total Air's employees are honest, well-trained, and thoroughly background checked. I never have to worry about sending their technicians out to my clients' homes. Family owned and operated for 3 generations, Total Air and Heat has been a fixture in North Dallas for over 60 years. Total Air is a proud dealer of the Trane air conditioning systems, and you know how hard it is to stop a Trane, so give them a call at 972-881-0020. That's 972-881-0020, or contact them at totalair.com today. One of the big challenges when you live in a hot part of the country, dry climate, hot summers, extreme hot summers, typically, is that you're trying to constantly figure out how to make your attic more comfortable. We discovered that, of course, our attics are like these big, giant commercial ovens. You can go up there and literally take a pan of chocolate chip cookies and cook them in most of the attics around here. And so years and years ago, I hired a company to come in and work with me doing insulation and doing checking duct leakage and ventilation and all types of things, and particularly radiant barrier in attics. And I ended up meeting my next guest, Ryan Amerson, who is the owner of Energy Attic. At the time I met him, he was up in the attic actually stapling the radiant barrier to the bottom of the rafters. But being the kind of guy he is, Ryan decided, I think I'll just buy this company. And so welcome, Ryan. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Alex. Thanks for having me.
You need to turn on your microphone. We can't hear you.
Back then, and I think it still is now.
Ryan, can you turn on your microphone? Oh, headset. Yep. Oh. I don't have a headset. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot that I don't have a headset on. Ziggy's going to run one over to me in a minute. Ryan, hang on, buddy. Hang on. We'll start over in a second.
But yeah, if you could just tell us a little bit about your business and how you got started in it, Ryan, while I get that headset run.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Alex is right. I worked for the original owner of Energy Attic for a couple of years, and then just kind of learned the business, and he made an exit, and that's been a huge blessing in my life and our family. So we, in 2012, that happened. For a few years, we pretty much just did insulation and radiant barrier and a couple of products for the attic. Since then, we've adjusted and added pretty much every service for the attic. So ductwork replacement, insulation, ventilation, some AC system maintenance and equipment. And
so you didn't like just stapling radiant barrier to the bottom of the 200-degree hot attic. What's your problem, man?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that it works, and it still works. But we just found, man, there's a lot of, the attic space is unique and is important, as you already mentioned. And so we just found, hey, we need to take care of everything in this space that is contributing to high electric bills or discomfort in your house, and frankly, air quality. And so that's really where our business took off and took a big turn, is in the insulation removal portion and air quality and ductwork, and figuring out that the attic is actually contributing to the dust issue or the musty house issue in your house has been just as big of a deal as radiant barrier insulation.
Okay, let's start with sort of the basics. So somebody calls you up and they they say, hey, Ryan, my house is dusty and my things just don't feel right. They're a little out of balance. Like I know that I'll walk in a house and I will smell attic air in the hallway right by the attic stairs. And I know immediately what's going on with that. It starts with these basic principles of home building where we poke holes all up in the ceiling into the attic, and we put recessed cans, and we put attic stairs, we put all these holes in the ceiling, and then we complain because there's dust in the house.
That's right. Yeah. So again, a big part of our business in the last couple of years has been the insulation removal and sort of the remediation of the attic. And so if we come in and your house was built, I think it's 1995 or before, where we weren't sealing up a lot of those penetrations or where the can lights are or the electrical and plumbing goes from living space to attic space. If we come in and remove all the insulation, get all the dusty stuff out, the rock wool, the cellulose, the things that are breaking down and creating dust, we can tidy up the ductwork. We can foam seal some of those cracks and crevices and penetrations.
So let's start out. Let's start at the basics. So the first thing that you're going to do when you go up into that attic, what are you going to check? What's the first thing you look for?
Well, the first thing we look for is what is the problem? I mean, that's first. Is it uncomfortable? Is it an air quality problem? Is it a high build problem? More than likely, we're going to solve all of those problems with the products that we install, but we're going to start with the problem. And in the season that we're in, most of the problems or the complaints is comfort, right? My attic's 140 degrees, and so my house is hot.
Yeah.
But we're going to start with that. When I'm in an attic, I'm looking at, first three things is just what materials are in the attic, what kind of ductwork is in the attic, what kind of system is in the attic, water heaters and the ductwork and the AC systems, are those in the attic? What kind of insulation is on the floor? Is it contributing to a dust issue? And how is the cold air being delivered? What systems are going through that space?
So essentially,
overall assessment.
Essentially, when we poke holes in the ceiling and we stick a light can up and it's somehow sealed or covered, and we used to put these loose covers over them, we didn't know any different. But then when the return air comes on, it pressurizes your house. It's sucking air through that return system. So anywhere that it's got, I guess that's positive air pressure, or is that negative? Whatever it is, it's sucking air through all those little holes. It sucks it through the recessed cans, through where the attic stairs, through the light switches and the plugs.
That's right. Yeah, so I think the recessed cans, the places you've mentioned where we're poking holes are a big problem. And the materials that are in your attic are a big deal. Those things are coming into your house. I think secondly, or sometimes primarily, they're being pulled into the AC system because of leaky ductwork or a return air register or boot that's not sealed properly. And so all the things that are running through your AC system are being pulled into your house. Some of that's coming in from outside or windows and whatnot, but a lot of that's coming from the attic space, and we need to seal that up.
And so some of the material that you're getting out of there, I mean, I don't want to get into the really biological, some of the things that you find in the insulation is my point. You find dead animals, all kinds of stuff, and all of that stuff is getting sucked eventually, particulately through your system. And most systems can handle a certain amount of it, but it can get, I've been in houses where it's really, really bad. So you go in and you vacuum out the old insulation, you clean it up, you get that thing like the day it was built without the insulation. What's your next process in that now you don't just go blow insulation and you've got to fix those other problems.
Yeah, so we have some stages and some different levels of foam sealing, if you will. It can get really expensive, but most houses don't require a complete foam lid or inches of foam on the entire attic floor. That's a solution, but at the very minimum, we're going and just poly sealing with a can of gun foam the pipes and penetrations, the cracks and crevices where lights are, you have to do it appropriately. If the lights are not LED, it poses some other issues. But where PVC is coming up, where ductwork is connected, anywhere sheetrock has been cut or top plates have been cut, there's an area of weakness. So we foam seal around those cracks and crevices and holes. And we have a sanitization process where we spray a couple of different types of chemical depending on the client, just to deodorize and sort of sanitize and kill any bacteria that might be, have lived.
So you're like an attic maid.
We make the joke that your attic's going to be almost as clean as a Buc-ee's bathroom. That joke's becoming more
Buc-ee's
relevant.
bathroom, buddy. That's a high bar to reach, baby.
It's a high bar, but again, at the very least, removing the materials that have been in your attic for 50 years, in my case, in my house, and putting in the materials that have come a long way, that are dust-free and formaldehyde-free, duct work that has antimicrobial components to it, is a game changer.
Sure.
And can really change the dynamic of the air quality in your home. And then, like I mentioned, just doing that most of the time contributes to an increase or benefit on the energy side, but there's still lots of things we need to do to protect the attic from getting so hot and so cold.
So one of the things that people should know is that when you have a house that is more than 30 years old and you have recessed cans in the ceiling and they're just regular incandescent light, they were designed for regular incandescent lights, they are, if they're not a sealed, what's called a sealed can, you can't just go and blow insulation on top of that thing. So if you're in your house and you see your lights coming on and off in the ceiling, like you're sitting there and all of a sudden you go, wow, that light just turned off. Why'd that happen? Well, usually it's because that light has a little thermal coupling in it that regulates the heat. When it gets too hot, it automatically shuts off. And so what Ryan's talking about is that there's certain houses that he can go in and that's not a problem. But the point for me is to have an experienced person in your attic doing this work so they understand that stuff. I'm constantly running into people complaining about these things just because, and it's almost always that somebody just didn't do something right.
Yeah, that's right. The can light issue is a big issue, and it's something that people want, or kind of a hot button, if you will. And so you can't just foam seal a can light. You can't just cover it with insulation. It's really important that you understand the type of recessed can that it is. Most of the time they're old, they're 30 years old, just like everything else we're dealing with.
Right.
And so that needs to be addressed, and there's lots of different ways to do it. Some really expensive, some not so expensive,
but that's something people need to look for and understand when they're doing this. It's something that needs to be addressed. And another real biggie that most of us don't even think twice about is the attic stairs. Tell us about attic stairs and some of the solutions for that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same point. Is the attic stairway is arguably the biggest void of thermal envelope in your entire home. It's a space that's a few square feet, and typically your attic door doesn't close all the way. Typically it's in the hallway where the thermostat is, and typically when you try to walk up it, you're risking your life.
Yeah,
so, it's a big problem. So the simplest thing to do, if you have a 9 times out of 10, is just to put a covering over that space. We use one from Attic Tent. There's a lot of different manufacturers now that are actually really good, but it staples in and has a zipper that opens up so that you can create an air seal, and you get a little bit of R value as well. So there's just no transfer, there's no heat transfer, there's no dust transfer in that space that's just kind of cracked open. And
another thing, Ryan, that I'm sure I know you deal with, and I deal with all the time in homes, is when we're having to work in an attic. And like you were saying, the old attic stairs, I don't know who decided that you could build attic stairs out of matchsticks. I'm not sure who thought that was a really good idea. But boy, we've had big problems. I mean, workmen get on them and they break, and they're rickety, crickety. It is really, really good investment to switch those out to a good, safe, you use the same hole, they just build them better.
Right. Yeah, they build them better, and they build them with some thermal properties now that are protective, and then some sort of covering. There's a lot of DIY stuff out there as well too, but I would recommend something that staples in, that has a zipper that you can seal with silicone around it, something like that. That's going to provide an actual air seal and give you some R value as well.
The next step in your attic is assessing then where do we need to go to get the optimal temperature in that attic. Explain to us, what is the optimal temperature inside a vented attic?
Yeah, optimal temperature, or achievable rather, is just whatever it is outside, frankly. I mean, you're not going to be able to get your attic colder than outside in the summer, or warmer than outside in the winter, unless you encapsulate or foam seal or create or build your house so that you have a conditioned attic. But,
right.
That's a new construction angle. Most of the houses we're in are existing, and your AC equipment, if in the attic, or your ductwork, if in the attic, cannot deliver proper air temperature if your attic is 140 degrees. And that's a typical attic space when it's 90 or above outside. So that's a lot of numbers, but our number one goal from the day we started our company was to get your attic, protect your attic from the extreme temperatures. Right. And so when it's 90 or above outside, you experience this big spike in temperature where your attic is getting 120, 130, 140. We've seen hotter, and your systems are just not designed to deliver 50-degree air in that environment. And
no, it's
optimally not. We can get your attic down to 100, or if it's 100 degrees outside, the systems that we use, we've seen within 5 or 10 degrees of outside temperature, and it still sounds hot. 105 or 110 still sounds really hot. But believe it or not, the equipment that we're putting in attics in Texas are designed to operate at 100.
Well, the interesting thing is you were doing an attic with me years ago, and I went in, and one of the designs of this house is that the upstairs bedrooms had actual attic space up around the walls. So, right. So the second floor wasn't just sitting on top of the house. There was actually attic space that came up around those exterior walls on part of that second floor. And that homeowner said, it doesn't matter what we do, right, we cannot make that comfortable up there. And I said, well, you're basically sleeping in an oven. There's no way you could do it. And I took a thermal temperature gauge, and I took the temperature in one side of the attic before you did the radiant barrier and the insulation. I think it was primarily the radiant barrier. And I went to the other side, and I took the temperature on the side that had the radiant barrier in it. And there was a 30 or 40 degree difference at that point. And that was without the insulation.
That's right. Yeah. A radiant barrier is not an insulator. It's a reflector of radiant heat, but the insulation is equally as important. But what you described is really common. Not only are we putting AC systems in attics, now we're building these houses where the bonus room or the second story is literally sitting in the attic.
Well. Right.
And so
it's like a second oven.
If you can imagine, like a normal attic, you'll have 10 inches of insulation between your ceiling and the attic, right? When you put your room in the attic and you have a 2x4 wall, now you have 3.5 or 4 inches of insulation between that wall and the 140 degree attic. You have to do something on that wall.
And it stays hot all night. You just you can never control that temperature. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Ryan about the proper insulation that needs to be done in an attic once he has the radiant barrier in. And then we're going to talk a little bit about radiant barrier itself. Imagine this, a totally customized, organized, and beautiful master closet. Imagine a pantry designed specifically for your storage needs, an office that fits right into a perfect space, a garage that you can actually park your car and find your tools. Imagine your home totally organized. Well, it's time to turn your imagination into reality and call my friends at Closets by Design DFW. For over 20 years, Closets by Design DFW has been making dreams come true for North Texas homeowners every single day. Backed by a sales force of over 30 experienced designers, Closets by Design DFW builds all their cabinets locally, supporting our community. Go to dallas.closetsbydesign.com and check out the amazing specials, or give them a call at 972-361-0010. That's 972-361-0010, Closets by Design. We're back. That's our new sponsor, Closets by Design. Thank you for joining our family. We're so proud to have you. Ryan, once you've gone through the process of determining what needs to be done, we're with Ryan Amerson with Attic Energy, and we're talking about we're talking about attics and how to properly insulate an attic and get it to where it works better for your home, particularly in the summertime. And we've talked about removing the insulation and then sealing the openings where air is leaking through the ceiling into the home from the attic when the system is running. And we're starting to talk now about the next phase, which is we have to determine how much insulation we need to put back, the type of insulation, and then to complement everything, the radiant barrier that goes on the bottom of the rafters. Now, Ryan, I keep seeing these advertisements on social media for companies, and they're laying that radiant barrier on top of the attic floor. What are your feelings about that?
I saw one last week. It's been a couple of years actually since I've seen it done that way, and it's an old method. I think it was, when radiant barriers started getting really popular, early 2000s, it was done that way. But I don't think we understood what radiant barrier really did, and what radiant barrier really does is reflect heat really well. And so putting it on the floor doesn't change the attic environment. You're trying to use it as an insulator when you're doing it that way. And so it's got to go up on the roof deck or the rafters at the source of the heat to prevent the attic from getting hot in the first place.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, there's just a lot of people that are using it or trying to use radiant barrier as an insulator, and that's not what it is.
And the thing that I always try to explain to my clients first thing is, and you can explain probably way better than I can, what is radiance? What's making our attic hot, baby?
You're gonna get into science, which is over my head. But there's radiant heat, and convection, and conduction, and at the end of the day, don't be confused by all that. Your attic is experiencing and heating up throughout the day as the sun's UV light and UV rays penetrate your roof deck and your shingles and start to cook, and the temperature of your attic kind of spikes and starts to bell curve until the sun goes back down. So we're not creating an oven or preventing an oven. We're stopping and reflecting that heat at the source and slowing down that process.
Those rays
still going to get hot. It's still going to get through. It's not 100% reflective, but if you can imagine, not many people use them anymore, but the visor in your windshield, the metal visor, the foil visor, the point of that was to slow down the process. When you get back in your car, it's still hot and you still have to turn the AC on. It's just not as hot as it would have been. And so your car gets cooler faster, right? So you're wanting to reflect and stop that heat wherever we can at the source. And most importantly, stop the heat and cool the attic down where the equipment lives, with the AC equipment and the ductwork.
And so your three-pronged approach in an unvented attic is to address the radiance that's coming through the shingles, which is basically the sun's rays coming through. And that goes through and actually absorbs, like if you don't have any radiant barrier, and that the radiance will go actually through and absorb into the rafters, absorb the wood in that attic.
Right.
It actually penetrates down through into your furniture and your body inside your home. You don't feel it, but that's what's causing a lot of your discomfort. And so it's imperative that you deal with that, like Ryan says, at the source. But to make all of that work, we're trying to get the attic to a certain temperature, trying to match the outside temperature, and that includes a well thought out plan to insulate the attic and to deal with leaky ductwork in the attic.
Right.
So Ryan, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so if you can control the attic environment by using radiant barrier and ventilation or foam in some cases, I don't want to be an anti-foam guy, but control the attic environment, get it as cool as you can at a reasonable price. Then now your systems are depressurized, they're de-stressed, your ductwork is de-stressed. It's not operating in 140 degree attic. So now we've done that. Insulation then takes over, and ductwork needs to be properly insulated and properly sealed, or you'll have deficiencies there. But insulation, in my opinion, like in the season that we're in, is now going to help with consistency room to room. It's going to help keep cool and living space air in and not escaping, and it's going to help keep the system off. So radiant barrier, in theory, tends to get your system to shut off quicker, and insulation keeps it off longer. And it's important that the consistency of insulation around your ductwork and on your floor, on your walls, is accurate and consistent.
One of the things that's interesting about blown in insulation in attics is that it creates sort of a thermal barrier or thermal blanket in your attic. And so in the old days, we would take batt insulation, we would stuff it in between those joists, and we would leave the top of that joist exposed. And what that did was create a thermal bridge. So the heat would get in the top of that piece of wood, and it would actually go back, absorb through that wood, and end up affecting the temperature in your home. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. And what you're talking about is consistency. So batt insulation, we used for years for maybe a couple of different reasons. It's easier to move, or it doesn't break down into dust as easy, or you can work in your attic easier. All those things are true, but the consistency and level of insulation, I think, is most important. And when you don't have a flat, consistent level of, in my opinion, loose filled insulation, you're going to get thermal loss or radiant heat penetration through wood beams or through electrical penetrations or through the wall. And so, at the very least, and why we use blown in or loose filled most of the time is because it can get in all the nooks and crannies, it can cover the wood joist, and you can make it consistent from room to room, which is most important.
And you can make it thicker. You can make it heavier if you want. You just blow more of it in.
You blow more of it in. One of the analogies I use is the vest. Like in the wintertime, would you rather have a long sleeve flannel shirt on or a vest, a down vest with a short sleeve shirt? And in my opinion, the answer is the long sleeve flannel shirt. I've never really understood the vest guy.
I've never understood.
Sweating. My armpits are sweating, but my hands are freezing.
I never understood not just going to Florida, not even having this discussion.
But my point is consistency. So I would rather have 8 inches of blown in insulation everywhere than 12 inches over here and 8 inches here and 16 over there, and it's inconsistent. And so we recommend, we've been selling R38, which is about 14 inches of fiberglass or whatever material you're using. It's about 14 inches. We've been selling that since day one. The old code used to be R30. And so we were kind of selling a little bit of an upgrade. Now the code is R38.
Right.
So we're still selling that. I think you can go up to maybe an R49 and still get your money back around here.
Yeah.
But the level is important. The consistency is more important.
And then having somebody that doesn't oversell you, because what Ryan was saying, and he's absolutely correct, is there's a net loss at some point. I mean, you can put too much insulation. It's kind of like in the old days when people would say, Alex, I want you to put an air conditioning system in there. I can hang meat in my living room. I want it so cold. And so we didn't know any different. We just put more air in there. And of course that created a whole new industry of repairing moldy houses. Ryan, I really, really appreciate you being here with us today. We just ran out of time. I think you and I could talk all day about this stuff.
Sure.
I'm so proud of you. When I first met you, you were working in those attics, and you've ended up owning the company, and you've done so well. And it's because you're a super honest, hardworking guy, and I really appreciate you a lot. You've got a wonderful family. You're a wonderful family man.
Appreciate that.
So
if I could say one thing just to close, like I appreciate you saying that. I feel like Energy Attic has always been, now more than ever, a company that genuinely cares about people. And what torture it is to be in the service industry, in any service industry, and not care about people.
Yes.
I think that's why you get crooked contractors. But I think we genuinely care about people. We're focused on from Micah 6:8 to do what is right and love people and work humbly, and we get to do that in the attic, which is ridiculous and crazy. But I appreciate you, Alex, and just the time year after year. So check us out. We'd love to serve you guys however we can.
Thanks so much, Ryan, and my best to your wonderful family and your coworkers. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
That was Ryan Amerson with Energy Attic. Great folks, love them dearly, as you can tell. Next week we are going to do a show on security, and I want to do we're going to talk about safe rooms. We're going to talk about home security. I think that's very appropriate right now with what we're going through as a country. I also want to say that I still feel that we're all going to get through all of this. We've got so many things going on right now as a country and individually, and so many challenges as a nation. But I have to tell you that the people that I see every day, the people I see at 7-Eleven, or if I'm getting gas, or if I'm at the grocery store, they're all kinds of people, and they're all makes and models, and everybody is respectful, and we all love each other. We all care about each other. We all care about all of us being successful in our own way. I truly believe that. And I have great faith in our country, and definitely have great faith in my fellow citizens. I love you all. So thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you, Ryan Amerson. Thank you, Ziggy Becker, my engineer, who is my boss. Thank you, On Air Media, who we love having our relationship with, having our show here. Thank you to all of our sponsors, especially our new sponsor, Closets by Design DFW. We're so glad to have you on board. And of course, thank you to our audience, who we love, and I love hearing from you. Please send me notes or thoughts or anything that you want to see in the future show-wise. And I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful week. I'll be back next week with more Remodel Revolution.
The views and opinions of this program are for educational and entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to replace the recommendations of a hired professional.
You can catch Remodel Revolution anytime. Follow the show on the website, remodelrevolutionradio.com, or on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, using the handle @Remodel Revolution Radio. You can always listen to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn, and watch the show anytime on YouTube.